Okay, now that we have our original demo recording imported into Cubase and everything's lined up with the grid, we can start laying out navigation markers. These are basically like just song sections and stuff like that. It makes it way easier to navigate a session. I prefer to do this at the beginning because it's just easier, and then that way it's there as for the whole project. There's different ways of doing this. If I were in a different DAW, I might use blank MIDI regions or just regular markers. But Cubase has this really cool feature called the Arranger track. I don't always use it, as intended, but it's a cool way to lay out song sections. So right here we've got our burner bar, and then we've got an intro. I'm just going to play the song and just start laying out song sections. And this is R1 for riff 1. Technically, this is the same riff, but there's a change that happens, so I'm considering it a different section. How many transitions we have? T3, T2, yeah, okay, T4. So the cool thing with the Cubase Arranger track is that you can turn on this arranger mode. Oh, they changed around. Okay, then we hit the E. That's what I was telling you before. The E does things in Cubase. It's like your editor. I think that's what they mean with the E. So you can basically build different arrangements. Let's start with that one. Let's throw this in here. Let's just throw some random stuff in. And then as long as this arranger mode is on and we have this first chain selected, because you can make different chains. This is one, however many you want. I don't really use this thing that often. But if this thing is on, then when we play the project, and that's just a handy thing if you want to, if your arrangement isn't fully worked out yet, you can use this to try some different things out. But normally I just use it for navigation markers. And if you're only using it for navigation markers, another option that might be better, like if you're going to be working with other people that aren't in Cubase, you may want to consider using a marker track. We call this song sections. And in Cubase, you've got two different marker types. You've got these regular ones that on most DAWs, they're just, up at the top, you've got like a special section for markers. In Cubase, you've got a track, you can drag them up and down wherever you want them. But not only do they have those regular markers, they also have these ranged markers, which are cool because they can kind of, they're not really going to do you don't get the arranger chain editor thing with these, but you can use them for navigation. And if you export MIDI, these will export with the MIDI track. They're not going to be ranged markers. They'll just be like the beginning of each thing. But then that gives you a way to export your markers. And you put the range markers in the same way as you do these arrangement regions here. I'm just holding Command and click and drag, although it'd probably be easier if I set my snap to bar. And it's the same sort of thing. Come up here in the info line, R1, whatever. And then, yeah, so if I have this up at the top, I can use this for quick navigation. And I want to show you, I can't remember if I already filmed this or not, but if I'm navigating around the session, now that I have these different song sections, if I want to go to the solo, I just click on it. If I want to go to the first chorus, and this works as the song's playing. You can just kind of jump around. I am using a macro for that. I'm using a special mouse button on my mouse, but basically all I'm doing, that macro is just doing click, the letter P, which sets our locators to that selection, and then L, which moves the playhead to the start of that. So click, P, L, click, P, L, and you don't really need the shortcut. I mean, you can still go pretty fast. I put the intro at the end to make it easier to skip. You're welcome. Subscribe if you'd like more stuff like this. This video series is brought to you by my friends on Patreon. If you want to learn more stuff about Cubase, but you're tired of trying to piece together information from random videos with no context to connect them, you may want to check out this playlist that walks you through an entire project from start to finish. This one here. That's right, you gotta click on it though.